No one in Maple Ridge had ever been banned from the community pool until Daniel Harper's name appeared on a bright red notice taped to the gate. What seemed like a petty rule dispute was about to uncover a truth the entire neighborhood had ignored for years. Daniel had lived in the quiet suburban HOA community for just 8 months. He worked remotely, kept to himself, and spent his evenings swimming slow laps to clear his mind. The pool was the one place where the weight of long workdays and distant family worries seemed to float away. One warm Saturday morning, he walked toward the pool carrying a towel and coffee, only to find the gate locked and a paper notice bearing his name. It stated he was prohibited from pool access due to repeated violations of community conduct. Confused, he reread the notice. He had never broken a rule. He had never even spoken loudly. Residents nearby whispered but avoided eye contact. Then she appeared, HOA President Linda Graves, clipboard in hand, posture rigid, expression rehearsed. She told him calmly that multiple complaints had been filed about his extended usage hours and unapproved solo swimming during maintenance windows. Daniel tried to explain he followed posted hours. She did not listen. Instead, she turned away and locked the gate behind her. As he stood there, humiliated and confused, Daniel noticed something strange. The filtration system behind the pool was silent. And that silence was the first clue that something far bigger than a ban was happening. He didn't know it yet, but losing access to the pool was only the beginning. The silence of the pool equipment bothered Daniel more than the ban itself, and by the end of that afternoon, he would discover that the water everyone admired was hiding a costly secret. Daniel returned home but couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. The pool had always hummed softly with the steady rhythm of pumps and filters. That sound had become part of the neighborhood's calm atmosphere. Now there was only stillness. Later that evening, he walked past the pool again. Children pressed their faces against the fence, disappointed by the closure sign. Parents stood nearby, confused. A resident named Mrs. Alvarez whispered to Daniel that the pool had been closing early for weeks. Another neighbor said the water sometimes smelled strange. No official notice had ever been sent. Daniel checked the HOA website. No maintenance alerts. No repair notices. Nothing, only rules. More rules. The next morning, he saw Linda Graves speaking to a contractor near the locked equipment shed. When she noticed Daniel watching, she quickly ended the conversation and locked the shed door. That moment planted a seed of suspicion. Later, Daniel reviewed HOA financial reports posted online. The budget showed repeated charges for emergency filtration repair over the past 2 years, totaling tens of thousands of dollars, yet the equipment looked old. Untouched. Rusted in places. Why keep repairing the same system? Why ban a resident who simply used the pool? And why did Linda seem so determined to keep everyone away from the equipment area? Daniel realized the ban wasn't about pool hours, it was about keeping him from noticing what wasn't working. Daniel wasn't trying to start a conflict, he only wanted answers. But the deeper he looked, the clearer it became that the pool ban was meant to stop questions no one had dared to ask. He began speaking casually with neighbors during evening walks. Most had lived in Maple Ridge for years. They described the pool as the heart of the community, summer parties, children learning to swim, retirees meeting at sunrise, yet nearly everyone mentioned rising HOA fees, maintenance costs, they were told, but no visible upgrades had ever been made. One resident quietly admitted that pool closures had become more frequent each summer. Another said the water sometimes turned cloudy overnight. Still, no official explanation. Daniel then noticed something even more troubling. The equipment shed lights stayed on late into the night, even when the pool was closed. Curiosity led him to the county permit database. Public records showed the filtration system was over 18 years old, well beyond its recommended lifespan. Replacement had never been filed. Instead, repeated temporary repairs were listed, temporary repairs that had cost residents a small fortune. The next evening, Daniel returned to the pool fence and watched as Linda unlocked the equipment shed. A contractor wheeled out a portable pump, ran it briefly, then shut everything down again. It wasn't a repair. It was a temporary illusion, and Daniel suddenly understood something shocking. The pool wasn't functioning properly at all, and if it failed completely, the HOA could face enormous replacement costs no one wanted to explain. Daniel realized the truth wasn't just inconvenient, it was expensive, and when money is involved, silence often becomes the community's unwritten rule. He printed copies of the public records and highlighted the filtration system's age and repair history. The numbers told a story far clearer than HOA newsletters ever had. Over $42,000 spent in patch repairs, zero permanent replacement. He attended the next HOA meeting, sitting quietly in the back row. Residents voiced concerns about rising dues, but discussions were quickly redirected toward landscaping improvements and parking enforcement. When Daniel raised his hand and asked about the filtration system, the room grew uncomfortably still. Linda responded with practiced calm, stating that all pool systems are fully operational and compliant. She moved on before anyone could ask follow-up questions. After the meeting, two residents approached Daniel privately. They admitted they had wondered the same thing but feared speaking up would lead to fines or violations. Fear, he realized, was the HOA's most effective enforcement tool. The following morning, the pool reopened briefly. Daniel watched as the water surface shimmered in the sunlight, beautiful, inviting, and misleading, because beneath that calm surface, a failing system struggled to keep the water safe. And then an idea formed in Daniel's mind: simple, practical, and impossible to ignore. If the HOA wouldn't fix the pool, he would. What Daniel did next wasn't an act of defiance, it was an act of clarity, and within days, the entire neighborhood would begin to see what had been hidden in plain sight. Using manufacturer records and county specifications, Daniel identified the exact commercial pump model required to replace the failing system. The cost was significant, but not nearly as high as the repeated emergency repairs residents had already funded. He contacted a licensed installer and confirmed compatibility with the existing filtration setup. Everything aligned. Then, instead of arguing with the HOA, he ordered the pump himself. When the large crate arrived, neighbors watched curiously as it was unloaded near his garage. The label clearly read, "Commercial Aquatic Filtration Pump, High Capacity." Word spread quickly. That evening, Daniel placed a printed sign beside the crate: "Replacement pump for Maple Ridge Pool Filtration System. Public records show current system is beyond lifespan. Installation prevents future closures and rising repair fees." No accusations, only facts. Residents began stopping to read, parents took photos, retirees discussed rising costs they had quietly accepted. By nightfall, the crate had become more than equipment, it had become a conversation, and for the first time, neighbors weren't whispering, they were asking questions out loud. By the next morning, Maple Ridge felt different. The silence that once protected unanswered questions had been replaced by calm but undeniable curiosity. Residents gathered near Daniel's driveway, reading the documentation he had posted. Some compared it to HOA financial statements. Others recalled years of unexplained fee increases. For the first time, the numbers made sense. Linda Graves arrived shortly after noon, her expression controlled but tense. She stated that unauthorized modifications to HOA property were not permitted. Daniel responded respectfully. He explained he had not installed anything, he had simply purchased the correct equipment and shared public information. Nothing more, nothing less. Neighbors listened closely. A retired engineer confirmed the system's age concerns. Another resident questioned why replacement had never been proposed. Linda's authority, once unquestioned, now faced something unfamiliar: collective awareness. Later that afternoon, a special HOA meeting was announced. Attendance was the highest in community history. Financial reports were reviewed, repair invoices examined, contractor agreements questioned. The truth emerged slowly but clearly: temporary repairs had been used for years to avoid proposing a large replacement expense. Short-term fixes had created long-term costs. By evening, a vote was called. The community approved immediate system replacement using reserve funds, and for the first time in years, residents felt informed rather than managed. But one final twist remained, because the story wasn't just about a broken pump, it was about who had been paying for silence. The pool reopened 3 weeks later under bright summer sunlight, the water clearer than anyone remembered. But what changed in Maple Ridge wasn't the filtration system, it was the community itself. Children's laughter returned first. Then morning swimmers. Then weekend gatherings that had quietly disappeared over the years. Daniel returned to the pool one evening at sunset. No notice on the gate. No whispers behind his back. Only nods of quiet gratitude from neighbors who once avoided eye contact. At the next HOA meeting, financial transparency policies were introduced. Maintenance reports would now be published quarterly. Major repairs required community review. Linda Graves resigned shortly afterward, citing personal reasons. No celebration followed, only a collective understanding that leadership requires trust, not control. The new board formally thanked Daniel for bringing clarity to the community. He accepted with a simple smile, reminding them he had only shared information everyone already owned. That summer, the pool became more than a place to cool off. It became a symbol of shared responsibility. Neighbors talked more. Questions were welcomed. Decisions were discussed openly, and the ban that once humiliated one resident ultimately restored a sense of unity. Maple Ridge didn't realize it had lost, because sometimes the smallest conflicts reveal the biggest truths. And sometimes, fixing what's broken begins with the courage to ask why, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.